It's January 21st, 2025, and we have with us today Vanessa Lisle. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Vanessa, why don't you tell us a little bit about Reina?
Sure. So Reina is a fifth dimensional Pleiadian being, and me and her are very connected, and I can communicate with her whenever I want.
And is she a past self or a future self or a present self or
Yes. Um, Reina is another version of me when I was Pleiadian. Um, do you want me to go into the whole thing? All right. So I originally met Reina in an out-of-body experience when I was about 20. And I was pulled up on a ship astrally, and I met this tall blonde woman, and she introduced herself to me as Reina. And at the time, I was 20. No one was talking about this. I didn't know what Pleiadians were, Nordic aliens, but after that, we were communicating telepathically. She was like, "I'm from a planet called Era." She never called herself Pleiadian because that's not what they call themselves. And I started communicating with her for the past like 15 years, and she essentially I was Reina on Era. I was a middle-aged Pleiadian woman. I put my body in stasis and I decided to join this envoy program on Earth where I decided to be born into a human body, which I am now. And then I'm going to live out this life. And eventually this, body, we don't last longer than, 80, 100 years. At that point, I'm going to go back. I'm going to wake up as Reina. And then the Reina I speak to is the Reina that was Vanessa. Vanessa passes away, wakes up back as Reina again. Then, because they time travel technology, because time's very relative, then she's the one on the mothership that's currently in Earth's orbit speaking to me now. So she was me. So she kind of knows when to come in and help me because she was me.
after you die, you'll wake up in the pod as Reina, and
I'm
then
gonna go back to being Reina, and then Reina's gonna get on a ship, and they're gonna pick because you can pick the coordinates of the time and the space you go to. So then Reina, who was Vanessa, is gonna go wake up in the pod, get on the ship, and she's currently on one of the Galactic Federation motherships that has a really beautiful giant park inside of it. And she's currently assisting me. And she's also doing work with the plants on the ship. So she has a little office and she does like little biology work, I guess, which makes sense because I have past life memories of when I was Reina, and she has this huge garden that she is just in love with all around her house on
on
Era.
yeah. So so Reina, when she gets in the ship, she time travels back to help you.
Yeah.
And the wild thing is that you are then gonna live your life here and then die and then wake up as her and then and then you're gonna get into the ship and time travel back and it's like this loop of it's like
Yeah, it took Raina a very long time of explaining this to me for me to finally get it.
it's like these science fiction novels where they have the loop and you're like a chicken or the egg. How
It
does
sounds like it sounds like an episode of Doctor Who, I'm not gonna lie, but I couldn't make this up, to be honest. I'm not that clever. I usually do my calls in the dark, especially me and you have actually done full channeling sessions where I step aside and I let Raina fully speak. And if you guys ever want to check out those channeling sessions, I just had a book that I was part of called The Beings, where Jock was nice enough to transcribe those for me, and a lot of those question answers that are quite in depth are in that book.
so there's this book, The Beings, and there's different authors that have contributed their portion.
Yeah, it's a collection of different stories of people with like different ET backgrounds and contactees and that sort of thing. So it's under, if you want to search Vanessa Lisle Widergren on Amazon, it should pop up.
Nice. I'm going to start with the question I asked you probably in our very first session 3 years ago. Was our planet Terra built by advanced races?
In a sense, all planets are in fact built by the efforts of many different consciousnesses that come together and create energetic geometry of thought that transmutes into physical manifestation.
Is the original intention behind the thought forms? Is it something that quarries matter from the ether?
Physical manifestation is an energetic expression of a certain frequency that in this particular matrix reality setup, essentially, is interpreted as physical manifestation, but really what you're looking at is fully a hologram, and that is just the interpretation of that particular vibration. We interpret it as physical reality, as physical objects and matter. But really, it is all started energetically through geometry of thought. It is energetic geometry that is being interpreted as solid. There is no difference, though. It is all geometry of thought. We just perceive it based on certain parameters of this holographic matrix experience.
Did Source create more than one universe?
Yes, infinite universes.
And universes are geometric thought patterns created by Source?
Correct.
How many planets in this universe are like Terra in the sense that they are crystalline matrices?
All planets contain, all living planets contain a certain energetic aura that it's, she says aura is the wrong word. Etheric envelope would be the correct phrase. She likes that better. And it is specifically designed to hold a consciousness. All living planets are, in fact, alive and contain an etheric envelope which holds, in a sense, on a big scale, a soul.
So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, all the planets in our solar system are alive.
Correct. It is almost the mechanism of the soul that helps with the development of the planets.
The mechanism of the soul to do what?
As the planet comes into existence, the energetic pattern of the soul highly affects the development of the planet as it bursts into this reality. There is a certain energetic framework or vibrational pattern that all souls have, and that particular unique pattern and framework does in fact affect the etheric energy of the planet that the soul is embodying.
So when the advanced races who created Terra, for instance, created Terra, they created the soul first.
The soul was in existence first and was purposely designed, the planet was purposely designed with the energy of the soul as a participant.
Are the souls that we currently are, let's say Vanessa and Jacques, could we one day become planets?
The simple answer would be yes. You would most likely become a there would be there's steps between us and them, but you could develop that way. Yeah, yes, essentially.
So a soul might need to go through a development process beyond what our souls are here in these human bodies today to become a planet.
Raina says, in the sense, the best word for it would be we'd have to grow towards that sort of development. But yes, this consciousness that you have now could develop in that way
That's
if
amazing.
it so chooses. Yeah, interesting.
It's astounding. It's always astounding to me. That's why I keep coming back. Now, I want people to understand that you are very generous with this idea that all of humanity can do what you do. You don't want people to think that you're special, but you do have a gift that some people don't have right now. We have not
Right.
all have developed what you have, so that if they
Yeah.
want, they can come to you. But you always say to me, "Hey, Jog, you can do this on your own if you want to. You can access this information if you work on it."
In a sense, I do think that certain families' bloodlines do have sort of a tweaked up genetic component that enables easier psychic ability, more natural psychic ability. But it is, in fact, Rain assures me it is a human quality that with practice, we can all develop to a certain degree. Some people might be naturally more inclined, and some people might be a little bit more psychic than others. But I think across the board, there's a certain amount of psychic ability we all can develop. And I personally, with Raina's help, developed my psychic ability by myself by meditating for like 9 years to get to the level I'm at now.
Well, speaking of humans and our abilities, I'd like to ask a question about our origins. There's two schools of thought that are the main schools of thought that I've found. One is that the Draco, the Alpha Draconans, engineered us 200 and something thousand years ago or so. One is that the Aldebarans engineered us from a natural hominid here on the planet. The Lacerta files talk about the Aldebarans coming, and they engineered the first breed, the second breed, this all the way to the seventh breed, and we're the seventh breed right now. So there's
Uh-huh.
two schools of thought. So what does Raina have any intel on who actually genetically engineered humanity?
Yes, I actually believe that a group of intergalactic beings that refer to themselves as the Paa Tal originally developed us. I believe Marina explained to me once there's some sort of confusion because they did take a very small monkey, like a pretty tiny sized primate being from this planet to use as kind of a genetic imprint to create a human population. But the Paa Tal, they're humans. Like a lot, not all of them, but some of those groups, they're humans. So they needed just kind of a framework. And so I believe that the original being that they chose from Earth did have some development from the reptilians. I don't know. It's kind of confusing, but to say they created us is absolutely ridiculous. Because the Paa Tal, this group of intergalactic beings, came and created us, and then we were added to genetically from many, many different groups, like the Anunnaki. We have, unfortunately, on this planet, we have some reptilian genetics, we have some gray genetics, and various groups have various levels depending on kind of where you come from.
So you've talked for many years to Raina about these kinds of questions, and so that's why you're able to sort of sum up what she's told you over the years.
Yeah. Also, there's been people who've really have presented ideas that I've taken to Raina and been like, "What do you think about this?" She's further explained. So Alex Collier's, phenomenally influential in a lot of this information, and then Elena Denon as well.
Right.
So they've both put out some really great information that I've had Raina explain in more detail to me. But Raina's also provided lots of this information without me even seeing it elsewhere. Even when I met her, I met this 6 foot tall blonde woman with like blonde hair down to here in a blue dress. And I'd never even heard of or thought of human aliens, Nordic aliens. I was like 20. I had no even idea they existed when I met her. So,
Right. And you were rather shocked to meet this tall blonde supermodel on a stage.
yeah, it was a bit it was a bit intense. Also, her ship's in 5D. So I remember when I was first on it, I could barely see for the first minute because it was so bright. Your eyes have to adjust. Higher dimensions are brighter.
Right. So you were on the ship astrally, and that's why you were able to be there in 5D, because normally if they took your body up there in 3D, you wouldn't be able to handle
You
5.
you can. They give you frequency belts. They also have technology. The first time I met Raina, I was meditating and I'd asked to meet my guide, and I laid back, and all of a sudden I think she like put me to sleep, and then or something happened. I like lost consciousness, and she pulled me astrally, and they have technology that makes your astral body solid. So I felt like I was there physically. I could walk. I could see my hands. I was there. My eyes had to adjust. They can take your astral body somehow and make it like it's your physical body. It's indistinguishable. So it's not, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like I was there.
Right, right, right. And that was after 45 minutes of meditation. You were like, I'm going to meet this person who keeps talking to me in my head. Who are you?
Yep. And then I got what I asked for. And it was quite jarring. And when she stepped towards me and tried to shake my hand, saying, "Hi, I'm Raina," I jumped away and I was back on my bed because I was so freaked out that it pulled me right back in my body.
I like that part of the story a lot because it feels so authentic to me.
It's real.
Like
I was freaked out.
yeah, like if you were somebody, some charlatan who was trying to make up a story, you
Right.
wouldn't have probably said, "Oh, and I was freaked out and I jumped back." You would have said, "Oh, and we talked about this and she told me this."
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It would have been, she showed me about, she taught me things. No, no,
yeah,
no. She stepped forward, introduced herself, tried to shake my hand, and I jumped away. And I was back on my bed. And then I like cried my eyes out to my roommate about it, my still best friend to this day. And she was like, I was crying. I was like, she's like, "Didn't you ask for this?" Like, and, yeah. But then afterwards, after I calmed down, I was like, okay, that was actually kind of cool. And then Raina, I noticed because Raina had been talking to me before that voice that kept chiming in since I'd met her, I recognized her in a sense. So I knew it was Raina. I could feel Raina. Because when I saw her and she stood in front of me, we had like a telepathic, she sent me a lot of information in like an instant where I recognized her. I could feel her warmth for me. I could feel we have some sort of relationship. And then afterwards, when she spoke to me, I recognized her because I had that information now. You know what I mean?
so on the ship, before she came forward with her hand out, she sent you tons of intel and information.
In like a split second,
Right,
she looked at me when we looked in each other's eyes. I had a lot of information from her in that instant.
right. And so from what I've been hearing from people who have had telepathic experiences with other races, they say that telepathy is not just some words strung along in a sentence. It's emotions, it's pictures, it's a whole sort of volume of information all at once.
Absolutely. And because I'm a professional medium and I read for people, I get telepathic information that same way. I can hear, I can see, like, I'll give you an instance. Yesterday, I was reading for a nice gentleman. A past loved one comes through, a guy, and it's hard for me to distinguish whether it's a lifelong best friend or a brother because they feel the exact same. But as soon as I encounter them, I can see them, I can feel the relationship. So I was like, "Hey, do you have like a good buddy that passed on?" And he was like, "No." So I asked the entity, "What's your name?" He said, "Jeff." And he's like, "Jeff is my brother that passed away." So, but I got what Jeff looked like. I got the relationship. I got his relationship to my client. I got all of that in like a split second when he came onto the scene. You know what I mean?
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So if planets are alive, they start out as souls, and then the advanced races come in with their intention to um, make a what we would consider physical solid body around this soul. That,
Right, but it's energetic geometry before it translates into physical reality. So this planet is energetic first, and then it becomes physical matter, and that's for everything. Um, Raina really, I'm still struggling to fully understand her explanation, but our reality we're living in right now is a hologram. It feels physical, but it's a hologram, according to her.
right. Well, I mean, even the scientists who are sort of on the front lines of hard science on Terra, they say that if you get down to it, um, there's no little particles, little billiard balls bouncing around. It's all frequency and force. So when we feel like we're touching a physical thing, it's actually the force of the energetic pattern that's on this side pressing against the force of the energetic pattern on this side. So it feels
Right.
like we're touching a thing, but it's really just force. And so even our science has come to that conclusion, so that they agree with Rain.
Yeah, and we have a lot of mistakes in our quantum physics that we just haven't really factored in multidimensionality. So we have this force that's called we call it dark matter, dark energy, because solar systems, based on their gravity, there's way more material there that we don't know why, because it doesn't work with the math for how much gravity there. Rain has explained to me that we have misinterpreted dark energy and dark matter as not factoring in that there's so many parallel realities in that same amount of space that because we can't perceive them, we're not for some reason they're so large and there's such a small negligible amount of effect that we feel, but because there's so much matter we do pick up that effect. So all that gravity is from parallel realities stacked on top of each other. And because our science hasn't quite grasped the multidimensionality of everything, that's why our math quiz isn't quite making sense. And we're kind of following blind, trying to figure it out. So
Well, I'm writing a book about the building of Terra called Artifact Terra, and one of the chapters is about the it basically asks the question, how is our planet held in place around the distant sun? Because even our science, really, our good hard science tells us that gravity cannot keep these planets in place. So what is exact? Could you ask Reina how planets are kept in place around their suns?
yeah, give me a second.
Sure, sure.
Space isn't empty. There is a certain structure would be the closest word. There's a certain structure that holds up this hologram, and there's many different energetic interactions and forces at play that do, in fact, keep two bodies connected. Primarily, gravity would be a the largest contributing force, but as you know, the sun, as you say, and planet Terra are not stationary as they are both moving with speed through space. So their interaction in holding near each other has a largely gravitational component, but there is something to be said for the, let's call it scaffolding of this holographic matrix as well, that contributes to, there are three other subtle energetic forces that are contributing to where the placement of the planet is in the holographic structure. It's too much information. I don't know what she's showing me. There's
Well,
other subtle energies. She said it sounds like it's primarily a gravitational force. So we're on to something with that. But there's three other forces at play, which are much more subtle.
okay, and she sent you a sort of a picture trying to describe these forces, but we may not even have words for them in our language, right?
Yeah. I wish she's never actually talked to me about this before. So she shows it to me as she's speaking it to me. It's conveyed. I'm gonna have to like unpack more about it. And also I'm gonna have to be in a deeper state of trance to fully get what she's saying. So for another time.
Because normally when you do sessions by phone, that's your normal mode. You're in a dark room.
I am, yeah, because I have to get deep enough into sort of a trance. I can do it. I've gotten better at doing it in the light like this, but it's still it's a brain. It's like an alpha brainwave state. It's I have to be relaxed, and the dark helps me maintain it better,
Right,
and
right,
I can fully let her fully speak with less like bumps in the road, I guess, if I'm deeper in trance.
right. So if someone put a spotlight in your face right now, you'd be like, well, I can't channel at all.
It's just too distracting.
Yeah,
It wakes you up too much in a sense. It's
right.
harder to deeply get into that rhythm because I have to maintain a connection with her
Mhm.
and I have to be relaxed enough to hear her and my other guides.
Well, can you ask her just as an addendum to that last one, going off of her answer about the structure or the scaffolding of
Yeah,
space?
that was a new one. She's never told me that. I don't think we've gotten into that too much before.
Yeah, I'm guessing with my limited playwright's understanding of science, is she talking about the ether as the fabric, the scaffolding?
She says, because I can hear her responding to you, fabric would be a correct interpretation of what she's referring to.
Okay. And
She also showing me that it undulates energetically through different phases of reality as well. So that's kind of the picture she gave me.
oh, so space, the fabric of space, the
It's
ethereal,
not stationary.
and it's
It's
undulating
a
through
wave.
dimensions or through our physical space,
I,
or both, probably.
it's an energetic kind of undulating scaffolding that's a fabric that it's between so many dimensions and so many planes of existence. It's all there at once and it but it's moving. So
Mhm.
again, I think I'd have to be deeper in meditation. I feel like I'm giving you a very rudimentary interpretation of what she's giving me.
Along the lines of our planet and other planets being life forms, could we say that Terra is a library for life? The DNA, the DNA frequencies of all life in our universe. Are we a library for that?
We are a library in the sense that we have quite a grand amount of diversity here. We also, just us in these particular Terran bodies, we are a very, very highly regarded and special mix of many different DNAs and vibrations, which allows us to access multidimensionality in a way that many beings cannot. We have quite the grand scale of abilities as we are quite a mix of many alien races that all have unique features and unique genetic knowledge that they have brought to our full encompassing experience in these bodies.
Are the Greys and the Alpha Draconans interested in us because of our emotional range, which comes from our astonishing library of different genomes?
They are interested in us for many reasons. Primarily, our genetics is the number one reason, but there are many facets to how they wish to manipulate and use us that is related to our unique abilities.
Are DNA sequences of universal life forms stored energetically in Terra's crystalline material?
Yes, there is many libraries of crystalline grids and materials that are just within the earth that are holding all kinds of old ancient information that is coming to the surface that can be accessed and will further be accessed. There is even crystal grids in the earth now that are holding a living library of accessible information.
Is there any way for Terran humans to access these crystalline grids?
Yes, and many of you are, whether you are consciously aware of it or not, many of you in your nighttime astral forms are gleaning and encountering these informations with the help from your spirit teams that are guiding you to fully feel the transmissions of this kind of information. Also, there are old energetic libraries. There are old physical arcs that hold libraries of information physically and non-physically that have been coming online that certain sensitive individuals are connecting with because they contain a certain DNA frequency match to these arcs, and they are currently connecting with, are aware of, and are downloading information from them.
Are the arcs embedded in the crystalline earth?
Many are underground. Many are hidden within the Earth's surface in various locations. Because of certain beings entering our atmosphere that have been long away but are currently within Earth's vicinity, because of a DNA shared frequency resonance between the arcs in these arcs are now being activated, and thus the star seeds that are also of these old races that have now recently come to visit who have left these arcs because they hold a similar DNA frequency pattern. They are in turn being aware of these arcs and, in a sense, activated.
What happens when a human engages the frequency information within these arcs?
They are able to access the arcs. The arcs cannot be accessed by those who do not share DNA frequency pattern match. They will not be able to access them.
Okay, because I've heard SSP insiders talk about how spaceships have genetic coding that don't allow anyone except the captain and the crew to access them to get inside the ship.
Yeah, so how they make ships in Era is they make them in space and they grow them. They're like an artificially grown consciousness, and they're made from our DNA. So only people of Era can use Eran chips because they share DNA frequency with them. The ships are almost like an AI living being, but they're grown from our own DNA, so they're part of us. Interestingly enough, I have a story about Elena Denon because she is also a starseed from Era. And to be able to even be a starseed from Era, the bodies we're in have to have enough compatible DNA. Something that me and Elena Denon share is we are Scandinavian. Scandinavian populations have more Era DNA. Pretty much any population that is typically 6 foot tall or higher. Tall people with more blonde traits. You can just look at it on the globe. That is people with more Era Pleiadian DNA. It just is. And so I'm half Scandinavian, so she, and so we have enough compatible DNA. Elena had this experience with her contact Thorhan where she was taken up on a ship and he was like, do you want to try driving the ship? And she put her hand on the console, and because the body she carries, even as a starseed, has enough Era DNA, the ship worked for her. She almost crashed it, but it worked for her.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean,
I I
And honestly, I believe that if I was given the opportunity, I think I'd have enough compatible DNA to drive an Aaron ship currently in the body I'm in now. I'm hoping I get that chance. Raina also told me 2 years or less until I can turn on the TV and see a Pleiadian walking on stage, shaking hands with the president. We are by 2027. The timetable's been moved up and moved up less than 2 years. She told me that 2 weeks ago. She told me less than 5 years. And then with President Trump coming onto the scene, that timetable has been moved up exponentially. And now definitely before 2027.
What did you think about Trump talking about planting flags on Mars?
The Galactic Federation of Worlds is currently terraforming Mars as we speak. We are going to have Earth colonies on Mars. Once we join the Galactic Federation, we get their shared technology. They're going to really help us. One of the first orders of business when we join the Galactic Federation of Worlds is Rainer stresses this to me all the time. Our oxygen levels on this planet are too low. They're high enough for us to be alive, but they're not high enough for ideal human life. In fact, they're so low, certain sensitive people can become depressed or anxious just from the oxygen levels. So immediately they have to start correcting that. So that means that they're going to start moving people in ship cities, and they're going to have colonies on the moon and colonies on Mars. Actually, it's so funny. Elon Musk is going to be like a hero of the age because I've asked her about Elon Musk. I was like, is he a good guy or a bad guy? She's like, don't judge him yet. He's going to go down in your history books as a hero of this entire age because he is she loves Elon Musk because she's like, I mean, he's not a perfect person, but she said he's going to help humanity so greatly. You guys are going to call him a hero for hundreds of years. So don't judge him. He's on our side at least. He's on the right side. But we have to start moving people off the surface. Not everybody, but a lot of people, because they're going to start. We have to plant more plants to take our oxygen levels up. So that's going to be within decades. That's going to be what starts to happen here after we join.
And when we go to Mars, we'll probably find giant ants, giant mantids. Um,
There is absolutely a very ancient underground population of ant people on Mars, and we have had been at odds with them before, but we have in the last few years really come to treaties with them, and we're all going to work collectively to create a cooperative community with Earth Terrans and the ant people on Mars because it's their home and they're being really gracious, allowing us to colonize there. And so we're currently they're being really wonderful actually to help us.
and we already have the slave colonies of Terran humans that were taken by the Dark Fleet under pretense of, oh, you're going to have a
The,
wonderful life. We're going to conscript you. And they go, oh,
the so the Mars Germans have been fully taken out of power. There's a huge German um, refugee population on Cirrus. Our entire solar system is now not working with the Dark Fleet, not working with the reptilians, the Orion Greys, and the Bad Anunnaki. The big bad's pretty much been removed. And so these people are free now, which is really cool. And we've stopped all galactic slave trade in our entire solar system, and which is a huge victory for all of us. And now we just need to stop the roots of it, which come from the deep state that had, these trafficking rings on Earth. That's how they were supplying the reptilians with these people. So we are, as a society, being led to get rid of that currently, and that's essentially we've won. Especially with President Trump getting into office, whether Earth politics aside, because I'm not a Republican myself. I'm not a Democrat either. I've been an independent. I was Green Party, I guess. But Earth politics aside, a lot of the parties were infiltrated by the deep state in a giant way, and Trump was not. So no matter how you feel about him, he doesn't work for the deep state, and the deep state doesn't like us. We needed to defeat them to move forward to this golden age that we're going to be encountering in the next 2 decades. So
for the last 70 years, they've been recruiting people for these slave colonies on Mars, and there was 200,000 recruits from what I've heard, and then they had kids, and now there's 1 million people in these slave colonies. But you're saying that they probably are working with Solar Warden to get off.
yeah, so So they're free now.
Okay.
And Earth gets control over the colonies on the moon. We own the moon; it's part of us. But Sirius is given its own freedom, so they're their own thing. They're the crazy Germans out there. They get they've been gone from Earth for so long that they just get to be their own thing. They're not part of Earth's control. They get to now develop without this overshadowing of the Dark Fleet and the reptilians, and they get to make of their society what they want.
Right. So that's that German breakaway society on series, and people who want to read about that from someone who was there can go to this book
Oh yeah.
series
I
called Lear Tony Rodriguez.
I adore his book because it was just so confirming. I think he's one of the most legit people out there.
Yeah,
He also just seems so awesome and sincere. I know he's a buddy of yours. I'm sure I'll meet him at a UFO conference at some point, but I'm a big fan of his work, that he was so brave to put it out there. And I think it's one of the most influential books of this day and age, honestly.
100%, 100%. Yeah, I think there's so much great intel in that book, and he tells it from a first person perspective of experiencing all these things as a slave on this damn world, which is really just from our perspective this little tiny asteroid. But when you're on it or in it, actually, it does seem like a huge world. It's big enough to hold cities and all sorts of things. So he
Yeah.
tells us this story, and there's a love story inside of it of this, as a slave, he falls in love with this woman that he meets, and he only has a certain sort of small time slot to even see her. And so it's like,
Yeah. Everyone, if you watch this podcast, go get that book. But anyway, I'm so sorry I gotta let you go because I actually have a bunch of psychic sessions I have to get to.
okay,
But if I could just leave you guys with literally anything, just from the bottom of my heart, the message for the Pleiadians is there's such a crazy political climate right now, right versus left, there's so much, the media's in on pretty much anything the media says is the cabal. So if they don't like someone, be suspicious. Or if they love someone, also be suspicious. Please try to put Earth politics aside and see through it all. And please try to keep as open-minded, loving discernment as you can as we move forward. We're really creating a golden age right now. We've won. And we need to let go of Raina doesn't like victim mentality because it's holding on to pain and it's bringing it into your present moment. She says there's no place for that. It doesn't create progress. It creates a backslide. It creates a focus on hurt and wounds, and it's very navel gazing into the problem. And if you want to create the solution, try and be as loving, understanding, forgiving, and stay away from that victim mentality. And just try and, as you see these changes, go within. Ask your guides what they think. Was Elon Musk throwing up German World War II symbols at the rally yesterday, or was he heartfelt? Watch it with your heart and your interpretation open. Watch, don't listen to what the media says. Watch the actual speeches. Watch what they say. Feel it with your heart, and that can tell you what's really going on. Don't let the media twist things. Really just decide for yourself. So
Elon said, from my heart to
I
you.
know. I
Said it
know. And
out my
and
heart
as someone
to
who
you.
reads energy, his energy is he's so excited, he's so loving, he's excited. Also, the guy's got Asperger's, you guys, be nice. If the left wants to be the party that's all about treat, people on the spectrum nice, you gotta, I mean, if you want to say you're the morally superior party, you can't only do it when it's convenient for you. The guy's got Asperger's. He was enthusiastic. It was such a loving speech, to be honest. He was so excited and happy.
Yeah.
Please use your discernment, guys. And I know it sounds crazy. Elon, he's a weird guy, but I swear to you, the Pleiadians love him.
Okay.
They love him. They're like, he's a hero. You're gonna see in the next few decades. Give him a chance. So I trust her. I listen to her. I don't. I try not to. I try to stay away from the media. And the pleadings were overjoyed with Trump's presidency, and they're pretty stoked on Elon Musk. So there's that.
Well, from our hearts to you and Raina. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast and for giving your time and being so vulnerable in your in channeling your future self, Reina. And I'll see you around the universe, okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jock. Love what you do. Love that you do these podcasts. Thank you again for having me on. And a good day to everybody watching today.
It was so much fun and we'll have you on again sometime. And say hi to Reina for me, okay?
For sure.